All right, everybody, I think we are ready to proceed. My name is Maureen Jarosak. I am the presiding judge. We're going to call the case of Marks versus Sunny Rooftop Bar. For my two scoring judges, please make sure that you've got your mute and your stop video off on the left-hand side of your screen, the bottom of your screen.
Both the mute and the stop video?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So that you'll be able to see me and we will be able to see the competitors. We'll leave those off until the trial ends, and then you can turn them back on when we're going to do a few comments at the end. Are we ready to go?
Yes, Your Honor, we're ready to go.
The defense is ready to proceed, Your Honor.
Can the attorneys please make their appearances?
Good morning, Your Honor, Ms. Brown, members of the jury. My name is Jordan Rein, and I'm joined today by my second chair, Lily Radowski.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Together, we represent the plaintiff in today's case, the estate of Jessica Marks.
Does the defense have an appearance to make?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Emma Brown, representing the defense, Sunny's Rooftop Bar, in today's proceedings. At this time, may I introduce my witness?
Yes.
If Sunny Mehta could please come on screen at this time and introduce herself.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Sunny Mehta.
And at this time, I'd like to introduce my second chair, Connor Grumman.
Good morning, Your Honor. I am second chair for the defense.
Good morning.
And that concludes introductions from the defense, Your Honor.
I think we are ready to proceed. Opening statements from each side. Everybody make sure they are in speaker view. Yes, go ahead.
Briefly, could we go over a few preliminary matters?
Absolutely.
Great. The defense would like to remind the court that exhibits 1, 22, and 23 are pre-admitted and can be referred to at any time in today's trials.
It was 120 through 122
and 23, Your Honor.
Okay. I appreciate that reminder.
And we'd like to request that if at any time the defense or the plaintiff cuts out, that time be stopped and paused until they reconnect.
I don't have a problem with that. Who is the timekeeper?
Your Honor, our second chairs will be timekeeping for us in today's case.
Okay.
And with that, the defense concludes their preliminary matters.
Does the plaintiff have any preliminary matters?
Yes, Your Honor. We'd just like to ask your preference for the use of demonstratives. Would you like us to ask permission before putting them up on the screen, or just make a narration for the record as we do so?
I think you should be asking permission before you put them up on the screen, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. At this time, the plaintiff is ready to proceed.
Go ahead.
All right, just one moment so I can set up my area. Can you see and hear me clearly?
I can see you just fine. If anyone else has a problem, please let us know.
The alcohol, the effect, the awareness. Jessica Marks was 19 years old and on spring break in California with her best friend, Morgan Levin. The two of them decided to go to a bar, and that bar kept serving them and serving them. Even after Jessica Marks was stumbling around that restaurant and slurring her words, that bar kept serving them and serving them. And at the end of the night, when Jessica Marks went to drive home, she got in her car to drive away, but crashed just 1 minute later and died. The alcohol, the effect, the awareness. Today, the plaintiff is suing Sonny's Rooftop Bar for the wrongful death of Jessica Marks on March 24th, 2019. Today, it's the plaintiff's job to prove that Sonny's Rooftop Bar served alcohol to a minor, that they served alcohol to an obviously intoxicated minor, and that that alcohol caused the death of Jessica Marks. Today, you'll see how the alcohol, the effect, and the awareness led to the tragic death of Miss Marks that night. You'll hear about the alcohol, the sheer amount of alcohol that that bar served to Jessica Marks. Morgan Levin will testify today about each of those drinks they gave her. And you'll see for yourselves the list of everything that Sonny Mehta served to Miss Marks throughout the night. You'll hear that after having all those drinks, that alcohol had an effect on Jessica Marks. Mr. Levin will tell you about the symptoms that he saw that night in Miss Marks. You'll hear that Jessica Marks' voice began to get louder and louder, that her words began to slur, that her eyes got red and watery. You'll hear about the awareness the bar had today of the effect that alcohol had on Jessica Marks. You'll hear that at one point in the night, Miss Marks stumbled down a staircase at the bar. That when she did so, she stumbled right into Sonny Mehta. You'll find out Sonny Mehta said, "We might need to cut this one off." But you'll learn never once that night did Miss Mehta cut Jessica Marks off. The alcohol, the effect, the awareness. Keep an eye on those three things throughout the trial today. Keep an eye on all the alcohol the bar served to Jessica Marks, on how all those drinks affected Jessica Marks and made her begin showing signs of intoxication. And most importantly, keep an eye on how the bar showed they were aware that Jessica Marks was obviously intoxicated. Because by the end of the trial, you will see that Jessica Marks became obviously intoxicated at that bar, but Sonny's Rooftop Bar never stopped serving. So at the end of today's trial, I'll ask you to find Sonny's Rooftop Bar liable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Are we ready for a defense opening?
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court?
Yes, please proceed.
On the night of March 24th, 2019, Jessica Marks and Morgan Levin were reaching the end of their spring break after a week of drinking and sightseeing in Los Angeles. The two were 19, using fake driver's licenses to con bars into serving them alcohol. On Sunday night, the two drank wine at an Airbnb rented by Marks before going to Sonny's Rooftop Bar, located in East Malibu. Now, at Sonny's Rooftop Bar, Jessica Marks had a few glasses of wine, 3 White Claws, a Coke and rum, and a green tea shot. Morgan Levin drank a glass of wine, a pint of beer, and a green tea shot. And after roughly 3 hours, Jessica Marks left in her rental car to return to her Airbnb, and Morgan Levin took an Uber back to his dorm. Jessica Marks's decision to get into that car cost her her life, as she drove off a ravine off the Pacific Coast Highway less than a quarter mile from Sonny's Rooftop Bar. That night, she passed away in a tragic accident. But a tragedy does not mean that the blame can be placed elsewhere. Sonny Mehta saw snapshots, not the whole picture. Now, in today's case, Ethel Marks, Jessica Marks' mother, has sued my client, Sonny's Rooftop Bar, for her daughter's wrongful death under Section 25602.1 of California's Business and Professions Code, alleging damages exceeding $75,000. In order to reach a settlement, The plaintiff has the burden to prove beyond preponderance of the evidence that Jessica Marks was obviously intoxicated on March 24th, 2019, and that the alcohol served at Sunny's rooftop bar was a substantial factor in her death. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, they will not be able to meet their burden. And that's because Jessica Marks' death was caused by her own negligence. Her unwillingness to act in her best interest is what led to her passing. And now, today, we, the defense, bring you an affirmative defense of comparative negligence, meaning that at the end of today's trial, we'll ask you to determine a percentage of responsibility for each party. Who was more responsible for Jessica Marks' death? Now, in today's proceedings, you'll learn from Sunny Mehta, the owner of Sunny's rooftop bar, who was present at the night in question, that by all observations, Jessica Marks did not appear intoxicated. Her eyes, speech, and coordination were not impaired, not obviously intoxicated. Now, today we ask that you, the jury, focus on Marks' mindset and outwards appearances. Was Jessica Marks obviously intoxicated while ordering drinks? You'll learn she was merely buzzed, not sober, but not obviously drunk. That's how Sunny Mehta, Morgan Levin, and Steve Rogier will describe her behavior. And how can something be obvious if Sunny Mehta couldn't even see it? How can we hold someone accountable for something they didn't find to be obvious? Because she only interacted with Morgan Levin and Jessica Marks for 30 seconds at a time, only a few times throughout the night to bring them drinks and take their orders. You'll hear the girls patronize Sunny's bar late into the night, and the bar was dark. Today, we ask that you focus on two questions. Did the plaintiff prove beyond a preponderance of the evidence that Jessica Marks' death was caused by Sunny's rooftop bar serving an obviously intoxicated minor? And was Jessica Marks' death caused in whole or in part by her own negligence? At the end of today's proceedings, we ask that you find Sunny's rooftop bar not liable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Before the plaintiff calls their first witness, I would suggest that we switch to gallery view so that we can see the important parties all at one time. Is plaintiff ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor, we're ready to proceed. Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff calls Morgan Levin to the stand.
Morgan Levin.
Please introduce yourself for the jury.
Good morning. My name is Morgan Levin. I'm a UCLA student studying biology pre-med.
Mr. Levin, did you know Jessica Marks?
Yeah, she was my best friend.
Tell us a little bit about Miss Marks.
Well, I met Jess when we were in middle school. I moved to Pennsylvania. I didn't have a lot of friends, and she was my stand partner in band. She used to do the funniest impressions of our director, Mr. Stom. And ever since then, we were really together all throughout middle school and high school.
Were you with Miss Marks the night she died?
Yes, I was with her that day.
Did the two of you go out that night?
Yeah, actually Jessica was visiting me in Los Angeles. She came over spring break, and on March 24th, we went out to a local bar called Sunny's.
Your Honor, permission to display a demonstrative aid.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Levin, what time did you get to the bar that night?
We got there at 9 o'clock that evening.
So you and Miss Marks went to a bar. Did the two of you drink alcohol?
Yes, we ordered drinks.
Who served those drinks to you?
The owner of the bar, Miss Sunny Mehta, she was the one coming to our table.
Thank you, Ms. Radowski. Do you know, how old was Jessica Marks at that time?
We were both 19 when we were at the bar that day.
Mr. Levin, let's talk a little bit about the alcohol that the bar served. Did you get a receipt that night?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Who gave that receipt to you?
Meta at the end of the night.
Would you recognize that receipt if you saw it?
I would.
Mr. Levin, if you'd look in your electronic notebook at Exhibit 17 for us. Is that your receipt?
Yes, ma'am.
Has it been changed?
Your Honor, I believe we're having some technical difficulties. Is it all right if the time stops?
Yes, I do believe that we cannot hear either the witness or the attorney.
Your Honor, can you hear me now?
I can hear the attorney, yes.
Your Honor, are you able to hear me?
Yes, you are back. Okay, please proceed.
Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff moves to admit Exhibit 17 into evidence.
All right, before we do that, I have a question. Did you ask him about the contents or anything with the exhibit because we lost the audio or the audio on that?
I didn't, Your Honor. I just asked that it was a receipt that they got from the bar that night after they ordered their drinks.
Okay, please proceed then.
Your Honor, permission to display a demonstrative with that exhibit?
Yes.
So, Mr. Levin, how many drinks did the bar serve to you and Miss Marks?
All in all, Miss Meta served us 7 drinks and then an entire bottle of wine.
How many of those drinks did you have?
Well, I had 1 glass of the wine, I had a beer, and 1 of the green tea shots. The rest was Jessica.
Could you describe what exactly did the bar serve to her that night?
Well, she had the rest of that bottle of wine. 3 White Claws, those are alcoholic seltzers. She had a can of beer, and at the end of the night, she had a shot.
Mr. Levin, did you ever see Miss Marks have any drinks that night that aren't on this receipt?
Yeah, I did. At around 11 o'clock, I think, Jessica came up from the bar with what she said was a rum and Coke.
Thank you, Mr. Dowski. So let's talk how that alcohol affected Miss Marks. So after those drinks, how did you see Miss Marks acting?
Well, I mean, we were out there having a pretty good time. I could tell as she had a lot of those drinks, she started to get pretty drunk. She was slurring her words. She was talking really loudly, wasn't really making sense. It was kind of wobbly.
Let's talk a little bit about the bar's awareness of those things then. You said she was a bit wobbly. Did she stumble that night?
Yeah, we were walking down the stairs of the bar to use the bathroom at around 10 o'clock, I think. And Jessica stumbled down the stairs and she fell right into Sunny.
Mr. Dowski, if we could get our demonstrative back. Mr. Levin, what did Sunny Meta say when Miss Marks stumbled into him?
She turned to the other bartender and she said, "We might need to cut this one off."
After Miss Meta said, "We might need to cut this one off," did she serve you more drinks?
Yes, she did.
Did she ever make a note about how Miss Marks was acting that night, other than that?
Yeah, I remember later that night, Jessica was trying to order another drink and Sunny turned to me and she pointed at Jessica and she said, "I hope this one's not driving."
Your Honor, objection more prejudicial than probative.
All right, would you like to tell me why that is?
Yes, Your Honor. The probative value of Sunny Meta speaking to Jessica Marks when she was trying to order drinks is outweighed by its prejudicial effect that Miss Meta saying potentially that that they hoped that Jessica Marks wasn't driving that night. It's outweighed by its probative effect.
Plaintiff's counsel, do you have a response?
Yes, Your Honor. This statement is not more prejudicial than probative. There's a strong probative value in this statement because Sonny Mehta is remarking on the fact that he sees Miss Marks as intoxicated and that he doesn't want her to drive because of it. That goes straight to the issue at hand today. The prejudicial value does not substantially outweigh the probative value of this quote.
Does the defense have any response to that one?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe that the probative value of this particular statement is outweighed by its prejudicial effect. Miss Marks died in a car accident, and the emotion of which this will bring to the jury, saying that allegedly my client, Sonny Mehta, said, "I hope Jessica isn't driving tonight," is substantially outweighs its probative effect in today's case.
I'm going to overrule the objection. I think at this point, Sonny's comment, obviously he doesn't know what's going to happen ultimately. He is just making a comment on apparently what he sees. So I'm going to overrule the objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Levin, after Miss Mehta said, "I hope this one's not driving," were you served more drinks?
Yeah, right after that, Sonny brought us another round of shots.
Mr. Levin, what time did you end up leaving the bar that night?
We left that day at 11:45.
Thank you, Mr. Yowski. How did you try and get home that night?
Well, when I got out to the parking lot, I told Jessica I didn't feel safe driving with her. And so I called an Uber.
What did Miss Marks do to try and get home?
She got in her car. I tried to stop her, but she drove onto the highway.
Mr. Levin, I'm sorry I have to ask you this, but what happened to Miss Marks next?
I'll never forget. I got in that Uber. We were right behind her, following her out onto the Pacific Coast Highway. And just 1,000 feet down the road, I watched her car just swerve off the side of the highway and fall into a ravine.
Thank you, Mr. Levin. Your Honor, I have nothing further.
Thank you, counsel. Do we have some cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed when you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Levin. If at any time during this cross-examination you can't see or hear me, please let me know.
Okay.
I'd like to talk with you about your relationship with Jessica Marks. You would have described her as your best friend.
Yeah, we were really super close. Even after she went to Drexel and I went to UCLA, we were always staying in touch.
You guys were friends in high school?
That's right.
And that was when you and Miss Marks began going to parties?
Yeah, here and there we went to a few parties in high school.
You went every weekend, correct?
I would say so, yeah.
And Miss Marks would drink at those parties?
Yeah, I remember she used to drink a bit when she was in high school.
I'd like to talk with you about your spring break during 2019. At that time, you were attending UCLA?
That's right, ma'am.
And Miss Marks flew out to Los Angeles to visit you?
Yep, she came in on Monday and she was staying at an Airbnb that whole week.
Your Honor, permission to display what's been marked for identification as Exhibit 19?
Yes, go ahead.
Now, Mr. Levin, do you recognize this?
Looks like a map of LA.
It's a fair and accurate map of Los Angeles?
As far as I can see, yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense would like to move Exhibit 19 into evidence.
Does the plaintiff have any objection?
No objection to 19, Your Honor.
Exhibit 19 is admitted.
Mr. Levin, this map shows you where your dorm was?
Yes, my dorm is in Westwood. You can see it, the little purple pointer on the map.
It also shows where Sonny's rooftop bar is.
Yes, it does. Over on the left side, there's the purple marker that says Sonny's.
Thank you, Mr. Grumman. At this time, you can remove the exhibit. Now, you went to Sunny's Rooftop Bar with Miss Marks on March 24th, 2019?
I did.
And you drank alcohol while you were there?
I did, yes.
As did Jessica Marks?
Yes, that's right. Sunny served both of us that night.
Now, this wasn't the first time Miss Marks had drank alcohol during that spring break, correct?
No, she had some drinks earlier that week.
On Monday, March 18th, you and Miss Marks went to Anna's Grilled Cheese.
That's right.
And Miss Marks got a beer.
Yeah, she had a beer there.
On Tuesday, March 19th, you and Miss Marks went to Toby's Taps.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Your Honor, may be heard.
Let me hear the plaintiff's argument first.
Your Honor, I don't see how what bars or establishments Mr. Levin and Miss Marks visited that week is ultimately relevant to the issue at hand. The issue at hand is whether Sunny's Rooftop Bar served alcohol to someone who was obviously intoxicated, not if somewhere else did.
Defense?
Your Honor, I'm not using the statement or these questions to prove that because she drank at these establishments, she drank at Sunny's Rooftop Bar. Rather, I'm trying to establish a tolerance that Miss Marks had. I've already established that she drank every weekend in high school, and I'm continuing to establish the fact that she drank every night that she was in Los Angeles.
I'm going to overrule the objection. I think they're going to try and put this with their comparative negligence argument, and I'm going to give them a little bit of leeway here.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Levin, on March 19th, you and Miss Marks went to Toby's Taps?
We did, yes.
At the beer hall?
That's right.
And on Wednesday, March 20th, the two of you went to Disneyland?
Yeah, we did.
And Miss Marks had a glass of wine?
If I remember correctly, she did.
And that same night, you went to Harper's for dinners and drinks?
Yes, that's correct.
On Friday, you and Miss Marks went to a wine bar downtown?
That's right.
And on Saturday, you went bar hopping with Miss Marks?
Yes, ma'am, that's right.
Now, needless to say, Jessica Marks drank a lot that week.
Well, I mean, here and there, she would have a few drinks. I wouldn't say it was nearly as much as she had when we were at Sunny's that night, though.
Mr. Levin, is that a yes to my question? She was drinking a lot that week.
She was never drinking heavily on those days. We were having drinks, but I don't think I would say it was heavy.
She drank every night, though?
Yes, about every night.
Now, she had become accustomed to drinking.
Objection,
Yeah.
Your Honor. Speculation.
Your Honor, may be heard?
Yes.
Your Honor, Mr. Levin has already said that he saw Miss Marks drink every weekend in high school and every night of the week that he was with her. I believe it's not speculative to ask whether or not Miss Marks was accustomed to drinking, as she did it quite frequently.
I'm going to overrule the objection. I think he's entitled to a lay opinion.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Levin, Jessica Marks was accustomed to drinking?
Sorry, ma'am, I don't really know what you mean by accustomed.
She drank often, correct?
I don't know. That was our spring break. So we were having fun, but I don't know how much she was drinking back at college. I know she's a really good student.
But you're aware that she was drinking in college, correct?
I don't really know. We didn't talk about that a lot. I assume maybe, but.
Mr. Levin, in your deposition, you stated that she was drinking in college, correct?
Well, I wasn't with her. Like I said earlier, she was in Pennsylvania in Drexel, and I was in UCLA. So I wasn't really with her on a day-to-day basis.
You assume that she continued to drink, correct?
Well, I can assume. I don't really know.
So yes, you can assume that she continued to drink while she was in college.
I guess you could say I could assume that. The answer is I don't know.
Now, during the time that you were in Los Angeles with Miss Marks, the two of you were using fake driver's licenses to purchase alcohol?
That's right. We had fake IDs.
And those fake IDs were purchased by Jessica Marks.
That's correct.
I'd like to talk with you about the last night of your spring break, March 24th, 2019. You went to Miss Marks's Airbnb around 7 p.m.
Yeah, she picked me up from my dorm and we drove over there and talked, listened to some music.
The two of you had some glasses of wine as well.
That's right. I had one glass. I think Jessica maybe had just one or two.
Now, later that night, you went to Sunny's rooftop bar?
Yeah, at 8:30, we got in Jessica's car and we drove to the bar.
And you two drank there?
Yes, we did.
And you left with Miss Marks at approximately 11:45 p.m.?
Yeah, that's when we walked out of the bar.
You got an Uber, correct?
I did.
But Miss Marks drove her rental car.
I should have stopped her, but yes.
Is that a yes that she did drive her rental car? Now, she assured you she was fit to drive, correct?
Yeah, she was saying she was fine. She was telling me that she'd be all right.
She administered a sobriety test on herself?
What do you mean by administered a test?
She walked in a straight line, correct?
I remember she was joking around about like putting her finger on her nose and walking around, just telling me that she was fine.
Thank you, Mr. Levin. At this time, I have no further questions.
Is there any redirect from the plaintiff?
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Levin, Ms. Brown asked you a lot of questions about what Ms. Marks was drinking on spring break. What night was she served the most alcohol?
Well, by far, it was when we went to Sunny's on Sunday.
How many drinks did Sunny's rooftop bar serve to Ms. Marks?
Served her most of a bottle of wine. So that's like 4 drinks there. He served her 3 White Claws, a beer, and a double shot of liquor right before she left.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have nothing further for this witness.
Does the defense have any recross?
No, Your Honor.
All right, may this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Levin, you are excused. The defense may call its witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, the defense calls Sunny Mehta to the witness stand. Good morning, Ms. Mehta.
Good morning.
If at any time you can't see or hear me, please let me know.
Thank you. Please let me know if everything's not all right on my end.
Your Honor, at this time, may I proceed?
Yes, please do.
Ms. Mehta, what do you do for a living?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur. In 2017, I opened up my own bar, Sunny's Rooftop Bar. Even got the newspaper headline and everything. Right now, I'm currently working on my next business, though.
What was your job at Sunny's Rooftop Bar?
Well, I was the owner, so a lot of nights I would serve drinks, interact with customers. I mean, it wouldn't be Sunny's Rooftop Bar without Sunny on the rooftop.
Do you still own Sunny's Rooftop Bar?
No, I don't.
Why did you sell it?
Well, our liquor license was rescinded and unfortunately we had to close.
Why did you lose your liquor license?
Well, in 2019, we unknowingly sold alcohol to 2 minors, Jessica Marks and Morgan Levin.
Why didn't you know they were underage?
Well, they were using fake identification, but at the time I served them, I thought the IDs were real. We didn't know they were minors.
What day did Mr. Levin and Miss Marks come to your bar?
March 24th, 2019.
Do you recall approximately what time they arrived?
It was about 9 p.m. when they came in.
Did you immediately check their IDs?
No, they weren't ordering alcoholic drinks at first, so I didn't check them then.
Where did the two sit?
They went up and sat on the rooftop, best seat in the house.
Oh, at this time, the defense requests permission to display Exhibit 8 on the screen.
Yes, go ahead.
Miss Mehta, do you recognize this?
I do. Yeah, that's the rooftop of Sunny's Rooftop Bar.
Is it a fair and accurate copy of the rooftop at your bar?
Yes, it is.
At this time, the defense would like to move Exhibit 8 into evidence.
Plaintiff have any objection?
No objection to Exhibit 8, Your Honor.
Exhibit 8 is admitted.
Miss Mehta, what side of the rooftop were Mr. Levin and Miss Marks sitting at?
They were sitting, you can kind of see the blue chair in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. That's where Miss Levin was seated. Miss Marks, you can't see her seat, but it was right across from Miss Levin's.
Miss Mehta, what kind of lighting does your bar have?
String lights.
Can you see those lights in Exhibit 8?
I can. Yes, you can see them in the upper left-hand corner.
And how many strings of lights do you use?
2 strings.
Thank you, Mr. Grumman. Now, did Mr. Levin and Miss Marks eventually place an order?
They did, yes.
Now, permission to display what's already been marked for identification, that's Exhibit 17?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Miss Mehta, do you recognize this exhibit?
I do. It's a receipt of it's the receipt that I gave to Morgan Levin and Jessica Marks on March 24th.
Do you regularly print receipts for customers?
Yes, we give them their receipts after they pay their tab.
Is this a fair and accurate copy of the receipt of Mr. Levin?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
At this time, the defense would like to move Exhibit 17 into evidence.
Did we already admit Exhibit 17?
While I believe that the plaintiff used Exhibit 17, they never officially moved it into evidence. At this time, we would like to.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor. I did ask to move this into evidence and we proceeded as such, so I believe it's already been admitted.
All right, well, we will admit it anyway. So Exhibit 17 is admitted.
Thank you. Ms. Mehta, who paid the bill on this receipt?
Morgan Levin did.
Was Mr. Levin the only person who ordered the drinks listed on that receipt?
No, the drinks on this receipt were ordered by both Jessica Marks and Morgan Levin.
Ms. Mehta, would you please read for the court the items ordered?
Sure. All right. Well, there was 1 bottle of Decoy Red Blend. That's one of our finest wines. 1 order of chips and fresh guacamole. 3 White Claw cans. A Ball Sat Point IPA draft. 1 Sierra Nevada IPA can, and 2 of our green tea shot specials.
Now, I'd like to talk with you about Jessica Marks's behavior on March 24th, 2019. Mr. Grumman, at this time you can remove the exhibit from the screen. Thank you. At any point in the night, did Jessica Marks appear intoxicated?
No, she didn't. I mean, I'm trained to look for those signs, but I never saw them in Miss Marks.
What are some signs of intoxication?
Well, it's really all the things you'd expect. Things like bloodshot eyes, if someone's stumbling, slurring their speech, sometimes even unconscious. Basically, I'm just looking for signs that someone isn't capable of taking care of themselves.
Did Jessica Marks display any of those signs of intoxication on March 24th, 2019?
No, ma'am.
At any point in the night, did you ever cut Miss Marks or Mr. Levin off?
No, I didn't feel a need to.
Did you ever indicate to them that you might cut them off?
No, I didn't.
Now, Were you aware that Miss Marks would be driving that night?
I was aware of that.
And how were you made aware?
Well, at one point I was talking to them, and Morgan seemed like maybe he was a bit intoxicated. I was starting to see him kind of slur his words a bit. So I pointed at Morgan and I looked at Jessica and said, I hope this one's not driving. I just wanted to make sure that Mr. Levin would be okay getting home.
Did Miss Marks respond?
She did.
What did she say?
She assured me that she would be the one driving and not Mr. Levin.
Did that trouble you?
No, again, Mr. Levin was the one that I was concerned about, so it was good to hear that he wouldn't be the one driving.
What time did Miss Marks and Mr. Levin leave?
They were there about 3 hours, so 11:45.
Miss Mehta, are you aware that Miss Marks was involved in a car accident after leaving your bar?
I wasn't at the time, but I am now, yes.
And how did you react to finding out that Miss Marks had been involved in a car accident?
I mean, that's just terrible. I never saw any of the signs in Miss Marks, but of course it's tragic that something happened to her. But the signs were never there. She seemed fine.
Thank you, Miss Mehta. No further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Mehta. I have a few questions for you today. Morgan Levin and Jessica Marks came to your bar on March 24th, 2019, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You thought Miss Marks was about 5 feet tall.
About, yeah.
You thought she weighed about 110 pounds, correct?
I generally don't give weight estimates, but if I had to give.
I'm sorry, was there an objection?
Yes, Your Honor, I objected relevance.
You want to explain your objection for me?
Yes, Your Honor. In today's proceedings, the bar for relevance is whether or not it makes a fact more or less likely. In today's case, Jessica Marks's weight and height have no relevance in whether or not she was obviously intoxicated at the time of her death.
Plaintiff's counsel?
Your Honor, how much Ms. Mehta thought Ms. Marks weighed is relevant to today's case. Ms. Mehta served Ms. Marks all those drinks, despite the fact that she was a very small person. I'm getting at the point that a reasonable person in Ms. Mehta's situation would have seen that Ms. Marks was drunk, given that she was smaller than average, and that logically it takes fewer drinks for her to become intoxicated.
Defense have a response to that?
Your Honor, while I do understand that someone's height and weight can affect how they respond to alcohol, the fact that Miss Marks was about 5 feet tall plays no role in whether or not Mr. Mehta or Miss Mehta should have served them alcohol.
I'm going to overrule the objection. I think this might be a question for the jury to weigh as to whether this should have played into the bar's decision. So please proceed.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Mehta, you thought Ms. Marks was about 110 pounds.
If I were to give a number, yeah.
You were the one taking the orders from Ms. Marks and Ms. Levin's table that night, weren't you?
I was. It was just me and the bartender there, so I was taking the orders while he made the drinks.
You visited that table 8 to 10 times that night, didn't you?
About, yeah.
So let's talk about a few of the things you served that night. Your Honor, permission to display a demonstrative?
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Radowski, if we could get that up. Ms. Mehta, that night you served Ms. Marks and Ms. Levin that decoy red blend wine, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
You served them 3 White Claws, correct?
I did.
You served them a pint of beer.
Yes, ma'am. One of our draft beers.
You also served them a can of beer.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And Miss Meta, you also served them 2 green tea shots.
I did. They were our special.
Thank you, Mr. Dowski. Miss Meta, you didn't bring all those things over to their table at the same time, did you?
No, I'd say I probably took their order maybe 4 or 5 times.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Is it your testimony today that after you brought over that bottle of wine, you thought Miss Marks looked completely sober?
It is. Yeah, they had just gotten there. The wine was the first thing that they ordered.
Well, Miss Meadow, when you brought over that second round of drinks, is it your testimony that Miss Marks still looked completely sober?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
When you brought over that third round of drinks, is it your testimony that Miss Marks still looked completely sober?
Yes, ma'am. I didn't see any signs of obvious intoxication.
And Miss Meta, at the end of the night, when you brought over those green tea shots, is it your testimony that after all those rounds of drinks, Miss Marks still looked completely sober to you?
She did. From what I could tell, Miss Marks seemed just fine.
Let's talk a little bit about Miss Marks' accident that night. Your Honor, my second chair, Mr. Dowski, is going to display Exhibit 23. It's a pre-admitted exhibit, and it's a copy of the police report from the night Miss Marks died. Mr. Dowski, if we could get to the second page. Miss Meta, according to this report, when Jessica Marks crashed her car, she had a blood alcohol content of 0.16. Isn't that true?
Yes, ma'am, that is what it says there.
This report also says that the legal limit for adults to drive is 0.08, doesn't it?
Yes, ma'am, you'd be correct.
Ms. Meta, just to be clear, you've told us all day today that you thought Miss Marks looked sober the night she was at your bar. Is that true?
Yes, ma'am. I never saw any of the signs of obvious intoxication in Miss Marks.
Miss Meta, according to this report, you told the police that Jessica Marks was your typical buzzed girl. Isn't that true?
Yes, ma'am. It just looked like Mr. Levin and Miss Marks were having a fun night out.
But Miss Meta, this report says you told the police not that Jessica Marks looked sober, that she was a typical buzzed girl, doesn't it?
That is what I said.
Thank you, Mr. Dowski. So, Miss Meta, you saw where Miss Marks crashed her car that night, didn't you?
Yeah, I saw the car crash when I was driving out at about 12:30, but it wasn't until the next day that I knew it was Miss Marks.
Well, you know that crash site was just across the river from your bar, don't you?
It was, yes.
So, Miss Meta, you're telling us today that as Jessica Marks was walking out of your bar with a blood alcohol content of 0.16, that you thought she looked completely sober?
Yes,
argumentative.
I'm going to overrule the objection. I think she's entitled to an opinion.
Yes, Your
Honor. Yes, ma'am. I never saw any of the signs of obvious intoxication in Miss Marks, so she seemed fine to me that evening.
So, Miss Meta, that's a yes. You thought she looked completely sober.
That's a yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have nothing further.
Counsel, do you have some redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor. At this time, may the witness please be excused?
Yes.
And Your Honor, at this time, the defense requests that they would be able to read into the record the deposition of Steve Roger, which is admissible under Rule 804, former testimony.
Your Honor, before we begin, may I inquire with opposing counsel, where is this time coming from?
Your Honor, this isn't part of my direct examination, but rather I'm using it prior to my resting.
Your Honor, if I may, there's not a spot in the rules of this competition that permits a specific amount of time to read in the deposition. If opposing counsel would like to read that in, I'd request that she pull the time from somewhere else so that both sides are given that equal time today.
Who is this person who we want to read their deposition?
They were a patron at the bar on the night of March 24th and interacted with Jessica Marks and Morgan Levin.
Can whoever the timekeeper or two timekeepers are, let me know what the time remaining for both sides is on their witnesses? All right, it appears to me from your timekeepers that no one has any time left to examine any witnesses. I agree with the plaintiff. I don't know where this time is going to come from. So I'm going to overrule your request.
Yes, Your Honor. I was under the impression that I had about 10 seconds left. I apologize. At this time, the defense rests their case.
Thank you. Are we ready to go to closing arguments? Do we need a minute or two? Okay. For the judges or anyone else watching, we might change our view back to the speaker view so that we're looking at whoever is speaking. Please proceed when you're ready.
Can you see and hear me clearly, Your Honor?
I can see you fine, yes.
The alcohol, the effect, the awareness. Drink after drink after drink. Sonny Mehta served to Jessica Marks. No matter what she looked like, no matter how she acted, drink after drink were brought over. Jessica Marks had just been looking to have a fun night out with her friend. But after being served drink after drink, Miss Marks went to try and drive home, but she crashed just 1 minute later. The alcohol, the effect, the awareness. Today, the plaintiff is suing Sonny's Rooftop Bar for the wrongful death of Jessica Marks on March 24th, 2019. It was our job to show you today that Sonny's Rooftop Bar served alcohol to a minor, that they served alcohol to someone who they knew was obviously intoxicated or who they should have known was obviously intoxicated, and that caused the death of Jessica Marks. Today, I've shown you all three of those things with a preponderance of the evidence. No one here disputes that Miss Marks was only 19 years old when she was at that bar. And you've seen how the alcohol, the effect, and the awareness led to Miss Marks' death. The alcohol. Members of the jury, you saw that receipt for yourselves over and over again today. Morgan Levin had 1 glass of wine, 1 beer, and 1 green tea shot. Jessica Marks had everything else. Jessica Marks had the rest of that bottle of wine, 3 White Claws, a beer, a green tea shot, and a rum and coke. Sonny's Rooftop Bar served Jessica Marks at least 6 drinks that night and never batted an eye. The effect. After all those drinks that bar served to Miss Marks, it began to affect her. Morgan Levin saw the signs all night long. And really, there is no scenario in which that bar gives Jessica Marks all those drinks, where she ends up with a blood alcohol content of 0.16, literally twice the legal limit, and doesn't show any symptoms of being intoxicated. Morgan Levin saw Jessica's voice get louder and louder, saw her words began to slur, saw her eyes get red and watery. The awareness. You heard today, not only did Sonny's Rooftop Bar serve Miss Marks all those drinks, they saw how it was affecting her and they never stopped serving her. That bar asked Jessica, said, we might need to cut this one off. But they never did that. Mr. Mehta said he hoped Jessica Marks wasn't driving, but he served her after that again. That bar served Jessica Marks alcohol until she couldn't drive her car 1,000 feet down a straight highway without crashing her car. The defense would like you to believe today that Mr. Mehta didn't see those signs in Miss Marks. But ultimately, it doesn't matter if Mr. Mehta claims he didn't see it. If a reasonable person would have seen, if a reasonable person would have seen Miss Marks was intoxicated, they're still liable. And today, you heard for yourselves, Sonny Mehta insisted over and over that Jessica Marks looked completely sober after 6 or more drinks. But you also heard today that Miss Mehta told the police that Jessica Marks was your typical buzzed girl. Miss Mehta told you one thing today and told the police something else. Can you really trust Sonny Mehta? Can you really trust the person who's trying to tell you that they gave Miss Marks all that alcohol and she looked sober? That's ridiculous. The alcohol, the effect, the awareness. Sonny Mehta knew how much alcohol he had served to Miss Marks. He saw how she was affected and he never stopped serving. Find the bar liable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Defense attorneys.
May it please the court?
Yes, please proceed.
At the beginning of today's trial, we asked you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, to remember 2 questions. Was Jessica Marks obviously intoxicated on March 24th, 2019? And was her death caused in whole or in part by her own negligence? Let's take those one at a time. Obviously intoxicated. Today, the prosecution told you a drunken tale of Jessica Marks tripping down some stairs, except the only person who remembers this happening was Morgan Levin, someone who was also under the influence of alcohol. The prosecution's case lies in the hands of someone recounting an event from 2 years ago when they were drunk. A 19-year-old who drank too much is their only witness and their only narrator for this case. Now, Sonny Mehta saw snapshots, not the whole picture. My client, Sonny's Rooftop Bar, was sued by Ethel Marks, Jessica Marks' mother, for her wrongful death under section 25602.1 of the California Business and Professions Code, alleging damages exceeding $75,000. In order to reach a settlement, the plaintiff had the burden to prove beyond preponderance of the evidence that Jessica Marks was both a minor and obviously intoxicated on March 24th, 2019, and that the alcohol served at Sunny's rooftop bar was a substantial factor in their death. They did not meet their burden. Obviously intoxicated. Jessica Marks was not obviously intoxicated. Now, we don't dispute that the bartenders at my client's establishment served Miss Marks alcohol. But ingesting alcohol does not immediately mean that she was drunk. By all sober accounts, she wasn't displaying any signs of obvious intoxication. Obviously intoxicated. That's the word we ask you to keep going back to. Was it obvious? And all sober accounts say, no, she wasn't obviously intoxicated. She wasn't sober. We know that from her blood alcohol content. But she certainly wasn't drunk. Let's focus on question 2. Was Jessica Marks' death caused in part or wholly by her own negligence? Today, you heard from Morgan Levin, Jessica Marks' best friend. She was an experienced drinker. She drank every weekend in high school and continued to do so in college. She had a tolerance. She knew her limits, but while in LA, she upped her frequency and she drank every day. Her night out at Sunny's rooftop bar was no exception to her previous pattern, but this time, her behavior is being blamed on my client. She ordered 3 White Claws, a green tea shot, and had a few glasses of wine over the course of the night before getting into her car and driving to her Airbnb. Now, let's talk about the pieces Sunny Mehta didn't see. Today, the prosecution showed you Exhibit 10, a video of Jessica Marks at their bar, which they've used as proof of intoxication. I'd like to remind you that Sunny Mehta only interacted with Miss Marks for 30 seconds at a time, only to exchange a few words while delivering drinks. She was working, not conversing extensively with customers. Now, Jessica Marks wasn't even visible to Sunny Mehta. Miss Mehta couldn't even see Jessica Marks while at the other tables. Today we showed you Exhibit 8. The bar was lit by 2 string lights located on the opposite side of the rooftop. It was dark, and Miss Mehta couldn't see. But Miss Levin apparently could. She could see how intoxicated she was, apparently, and still felt comfortable with her driving. Still allowed for her best friend to get into a car, still felt comfortable letting his best friend drive. Yet, an accident happened. Unfortunately, Miss Marks crashed her car in a ravine off the Pacific Coast Highway and died. But a tragedy does not mean that the blame can be placed elsewhere. In a few moments, you'll be asked to quantify blame. Who was more negligent, Sunny's rooftop bar or Jessica Marks? The person who served her drinks when she ordered them after she conned them with a fake ID, or the one who chose to drink, who chose to drive? Sunny Mehta saw snapshots, not the whole picture. Find Sunny's rooftop bar not liable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Does the plaintiff have any rebuttal?
I do, Your Honor. Ms. Brown just got up here and told you that Miss Mehta only saw snapshots that night and not the whole picture. Members of the jury, I'll remind you today, it doesn't matter. It doesn't ultimately matter if you believe that Sunny Mehta was aware or not. We showed you that Sunny Mehta was aware, but if you disagree, it doesn't matter, because a reasonable person would have seen that Jessica Marks was obviously intoxicated after at least 6 drinks. Ms. Brown also told you that the bar didn't have good lighting in it. Members of the jury, whose fault is that? Who holds a legal responsibility to keep track of which of their patrons might be obviously intoxicated? It wasn't Jessica Marks. It was Sunny Mehta. Today, Jessica Marks doesn't hold the blame in her own death. Because when she decided to drive home at the end of the night, it wasn't her own decision. Sunny's rooftop bar ripped that decision away when they served her all those drinks. Find them liable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. All right, at this point, the judges should complete their ballots.